Anno Mundi, abbreviated as AM or AM, or year after creation, is a calendar era based on the biblical accounts of the creation of the world and subsequent history. While numerous efforts have been made to determine the biblical date of creation, yielding varying results, two in particular have established epochs for significant calendars, including one that is still in use today. The Hebrew calendar epoch is based on 12th century CE rabbinic estimates for the year of creation, which are calculated from data obtained in the Hebrew Masoretic text. This calendar is used within Jewish communities for religious and other purposes. On the Hebrew calendar, the day begins at sunset. The calendar's epoch, corresponding to the calculated date of the world's creation, is equivalent to sunset on the Julian proleptic calendar date, the 6th of October 3761 BC. The new year begins at Rosh Hashanah, roughly in September. Year Anno Mundi 5776, or AM 5776, began at sunset on the 13th of September 2015 on the Gregorian calendar. The Byzantine calendar, used for over 1,000 years in the Byzantine Empire in many Christian Orthodox countries and Eastern Orthodox churches, based its epoch on 7th century calculations from data found in the Septuagint text, an early Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that was made by Alexandrian Jews and adopted by Christians. That calendar is actually the Julian calendar itself, except for the Eastern-derived epoch of year counting in place of the Western AD BC epoch, and a different New Year's date, the 1st of September. It proposed that the creation occurred 5,509 years before the Incarnation, so its epoch is equivalent to the 1st of September 5509 BC on the Julian proleptic calendar. While differences in biblical interpretation or in calculation methodology can produce some differences in the creation date, most results fall relatively close to one of these two dominant models. The primary reason for the disparity seems to lie in which underlying biblical text is chosen. Most of the 1,732-year difference resides in numerical discrepancies in the genealogies of the two versions of the Book of Genesis. Patriarchs from Adam to Terah, the father of Abraham, are said to be older by as much as 100 years or more when they begat the named son in the Greek Septuagint than they were in the Latin Vulgate, or the Hebrew Tanakh. The net difference between the two major genealogies of Genesis is 1,466 years, 85% of the total difference. Jewish tradition. During the Talmudic era, from the 1st to the 10th centuries AD, the center of the Jewish world was in the Middle East, primarily in the Talmudic academies of Iraq and the land of Israel. Jews in these regions used Seleucid era dating, or the era of contracts, as the primary method for calculating the calendar year. For example, the writings of Josephus and the books of the Maccabees used Seleucid era dating exclusively, and the Talmud tractate Avodah Zarah states, Rav Harbi. Jacob then put this question: how do we know that our era is connected with the kingdom of Greece at all? Why not say that it is reckoned from the Exodus from Egypt, omitting the first 1,000 years and giving the years of the next 1,000? In that case, the document is really post-dated. Said Rav Naaman. In the diaspora, the Greek era alone is used. He thought that Rav Naaman wanted to dispose of him anyhow, but when he went and studied it thoroughly, he found that it is indeed taught. In the diaspora, the Greek era alone is used. Occasionally in Talmudic writings, reference was made to other starting points for eras, such as destruction era dating. being the number of years since the AD 70 destruction of the Second Temple, and the number of years since the creation year based on the calculation in the Seder Olim Rabbah of Rabbi Jose ben Halafta in about AD 160. By his calculation, based on the Masoretic text, Adam and Eve were created on 1st of Tishrei in 3761 BC, later confirmed by the Muslim chronologist al-Biruni as 3448 years before the Seleucid era. An example is the c. 8th century AD Bara-Ita of Samuel. In the 8th and 9th centuries AD, the center of Jewish life moved from Babylonia to Europe, so calculations from the Seleucid era became meaningless. For the 11th century, Anno Mundi dating became dominant throughout most of the world's Jewish communities, replacing the Seleucid dating system. The new system reached its definitive form in AD 1178 when Maimonides completed the Mishnah Torah. In the section Sanctification of the Moon, he wrote of his choice of epoch, from which calculations of all dates should be made, as the third day of Nisan in this present year, which is the year 4938 of the creation of the world. He included all the rules for the calculated calendar epoch and the scriptural basis, including the modern epochal year in his work, and establishing the final formal usage of the Anno Mundi era. The first year of the Jewish calendar, Anno Mundi 1, began about 1 year before creation, so that year is also called the year of emptiness. The first 5 days of Jewish creation week occupy the last 5 days of AM1, Elul 25 to 29. The 6th day of creation, when Adam and Eve were created, is the first day of AM2, Rosh Hashanah. Its associated Milad Adam occurred on day 5 at 14 hours. A year earlier, the first day of AM1, Rosh Hashanah, is associated with Milad Tohu, so named because it occurred before creation when everything was still chaotic. It is also translated as the new moon of nothing. This is also called Milad Beharad, because it occurred on day 2, 5 hours, 204 parts. Because this is just before midnight when the Western day begins, but after 6 p.m. when the Jewish calendrical day begins. Its Julian calendar date is 6/7 October 3761 BCE. Greek tradition. The Septuagint was the most scholarly non-Hebrew version of the Old Testament available to early Christians. Many converts already spoke Greek, and it was readily adopted as the preferred vernacular language rendering for the Eastern Roman Empire. The later Latin translation, called the Vulgate, an interpretative translation from the later Masoretic text, replaced it in the West after its completion by St. Jerome c. 405, Latin being the most common vernacular language in those regions. Earliest Christian chronology. The earliest text and Christian writings on the age of the world according to the biblical chronology were therefore based on the Septuagint. Due to its early availability, they can be found in the Apology to Autolycus by Theophilus, the 6th Bishop of Antioch, and the 5 books of chronology by Sextus Julius Africanus. Theophilus presents a detailed chronology, from the foundation of the world to Emperor Marcus Aurelius. His chronology begins with the biblical first man Adam through to Emperor Marcus Aurelius, in whose reign Theophilus lived. The chronology puts the creation of the world at about 5529 BC. All the years from the creation of the world amount to a total of 5,698 years. No mention of Jesus of Nazareth is made in his chronology. Seraphim Rose corrected the date to about 5530 BC to recognize that there is no year 0 in Christian era dating. Dr. Ben Zion Wacholder points out that the writings of the Church Fathers on this subject are of vital significance, in that through the Christian chronographers a window to the earlier Hellenistic biblical chronographers is preserved. An immense intellectual effort was expended during the Hellenistic period by both Jews and pagans to date creation, the flood, Exodus, building of the temple, ... In the course of the studies, men such as Tatian of Antioch, Clement of Alexandria, Hippolytus of Rome, Sextus Julius Africanus of Jerusalem, Eusebius of Caesarea in Palestine, and Pseudo-Justin frequently quoted the predecessors, the Greco-Jewish biblical chronographers of the Hellenistic period, thereby allowing discernment of more distant scholarship. The Chronicon of Eusebius and Jerome dated creation to 5199 BC. Earlier editions of the Roman Martyrology for Christmas Day used this date, as did the Irish Annals of the Four Masters. Alexandrian Era. The Alexandrian Era, developed in AD 412, was the precursor to the Byzantine Era. After the initial attempts by Hippolytus, Clement of Alexandria and others, the Alexandrian computation of the date of creation was worked out to be the 25th of March 5493 BC. The Alexandrian monk Panadoros reckoned 5,904 years from Adam to the year AD 412. His years began with the 29th of August, corresponding to the 1st of Thoth, or the Egyptian New Year. Annianus of Alexandria, however, preferred the Annunciation style as New Year's Day, the 25th of March, and shifted the Panadoros era by about 6 months, to begin on the 25th of March. This created the Alexandrian era, whose first day was the first day of the proleptic Alexandrian civil year in progress, the 29th of August 5493 BC, with the ecclesiastical year beginning on the 25th of March 5493 BC. This system presents in a masterly sort of way the mystical coincidence of the three main dates of the world's history: the beginning of creation, the incarnation, and the resurrection of Christ. All these events happened, according to the Alexandrian chronology, on the 25th of March. Furthermore, the first two events were separated by the period of exactly 5,500 years. The first and the third one occurred on Sunday, the sacred day of the beginning of the creation and its renovation through Christ. Dionysius of Alexandria had earlier emphatically quoted mystical justifications for the choice of the 25th of March as the start of the year. March 25th was considered to be the anniversary of creation itself. It was the first day of the year in the medieval Julian calendar and the nominal vernal equinox. Considering that Christ was conceived at the day, turned March 25th into the Feast of the Annunciation, which had to be followed, 9 months later, by the celebration of the birth of Christ, Christmas, on December 25th. The Alexandrian era of the 25th of March 5493 BC was adopted by Church Fathers such as Maximus the Confessor and Theophanes the Confessor, as well as chroniclers such as George Syncellus. Its striking mysticism made it popular in Byzantium, especially in monastic circles. However, this masterpiece of Christian symbolism had two seriously weak points: historical inaccuracy surrounding the date of resurrection as determined by its Easter computers, and its contradiction to the chronology of the Gospel of St. John regarding the date of the crucifixion on Friday after the Passover. Chronicon Pascal, a new variant of the World Era, was suggested in the Chronicon Pascal, a valuable Byzantine universal chronicle of the world, composed about the year AD 630 by some representative of the Antiochian scholarly tradition. It dates the creation of Adam to the 21st of March 5507 BC, for its influence on Greek Christian chronology, and also because of its wide scope. The Chronicon Pascal takes its place beside Eusebius, and the Chronicle of the monk Georgius Syncellus, which was so important in the Middle Ages, but in respect of form it is inferior to these works. Adoption of Byzantine era. The Byzantine Anno Mundi era was the official calendar of the Eastern Orthodox Church from c. AD 691 to 1728 in the Ecumenical Patriarchate. By the late 10th century, the Byzantine era, which had become fixed at the 1st of September 5509 BC since at least the mid-7th century, had become the widely accepted calendar by Chalcedonian Christianity. The Byzantine era was used as the civil calendar by the Byzantine Empire from AD 988 to 1453, and by Russia from c. AD 988 to 1700. The computation was derived from the Septuagint version of the Bible, and placed the date of creation at 5,509 years before the Incarnation, which was later taken to mean 5509 BC when conversions to the Christian era were desired. With the New Year date of September 1st, which coincides with the beginning of the Orthodox liturgical year, its epoch became the 1st of September 5509 BC, and year AM1 thus lasted until the 31st of August 5508 BC. The year of creation was generally expressed in Greek in the Byzantine calendar as etios cosmo, literally, year of the universe. Roman tradition. Western Christianity never fully adopted an Anno Mundi epoch system, and did not at first produce chronologies based on the Vulgate that were in contrast to the Eastern calculations from the Septuagint. Since the Vulgate was not completed until only a few years before the sack of Rome by the Goths, there was little time for such developments before the political upheavals that followed in the West. Whatever the reasons, the West eventually came to rely instead on the independently developed Anno Domini epoch system. AM dating did continue to be of interest for liturgical reasons, however, since it was of direct relevance to the calculation of the Nativity of Jesus and the Passion of Christ. For example, Bede in his World Chronicle dated all events using an epoch he derived from the Vulgate, which set the birth of Christ as AM 3952. In his letter to Plegwin, Bede explained the difference between the two epochs. Muslim tradition. The Islamic world never adopted an Anno Mundi epoch system. Instead, year 1 of the Islamic calendar begins on July 16, AD 622, the start of the Hijra. The first year was the Islamic year beginning in AD 622, during which the emigration of Muhammad from Mecca to Medina occurred. Year numbers in the Islamic calendar are marked R for Anno Haggai, meaning in the year of the Hijra.